I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weed from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after Game of the Year candidate for these two teams anyways. I'm not saying there weren't some other crazier games out there so far this year, but you take the circumstances. Saturday night, baby. Always a big event on Saturday night. Top two teams in the NHL, have them battle to a 4-4 tie, have each of them kind of show what they're capable of, what makes them good teams, resolve on both sides, going to overtime winner. I don't know that I've seen a more entertaining game than that for the Winnipeg Jets. Fascinating matchup, I thought here. The Winnipeg Jets found a way to create kind of chaos from afar, right? How often was Logan Thompson left with that kind of look where he's like, what am I supposed to do, right? Like, you know that you've got a goaltender frustrated, that you've been able to take away his eyes. When, like you did when the Winnipeg Jets had Logan Thompson responding the way that he did tonight. The other side of that, I thought, if you want to know like how the Washington Capitals got back into that game, this is as good an example as I think we see this year, that we've seen this year, of a team getting to the inside on the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, if there's one thing to take away from it, I wonder about how at the end of the game, the Capitals for the most part were able to just get to the front of the net, push their way around and get goals to land that way. Fascinating. You've got the top two offensive teams in the league, the top two defensive teams in the league, the two best teams when it comes to team goaltending. You knew it all couldn't line up, right? It was either going to be a defensive gem if they were going to stay close, or it was going to be an offensive gem if they were going to light it up, and both do so. For a while, it looked like the Jets were going to run away with this one. Feels like, or Gary Galley, I think if you heard him, he said it in the broadcast, felt like the first period was a little bit of a late to arrive moment for the Washington Capitals, who had just come off of a long road trip. Feels like the third period, for a little bit anyways, was a bit of a, Jets weren't able to close it out kind of period for the Jets. That said, I love there's a moment where after the game's tied, the Jets just turn it back up ice. I don't know that I've talked enough about this, and maybe I should talk about it more often in this show, but just the way that the Jets are on command, able to kind of bring their game. I want to get back into that. I'm going to write it down to make sure, because I want to spend a segment of this podcast talking about the importance of being an on-command type of team. But I just take a look at this one, and I think overall, you've got two big teams. One of the stories we didn't get to tell tonight was how the Winnipeg Jets are the fourth biggest team in the NHL, tallest. The Washington Capitals are the third tallest, for interest's sake. Vegas Golden Knights are the second tallest, and the Boston Bruins are the tallest. So that bigness, that ranginess makes it really, really hard to get inside on teams. The Winnipeg Jets, it's funny, we talk about them having a smaller defense, and they do. They found a way to get around that. And I think one of the reasons is because they defend as a team, and a lot, they may not be the biggest on the back end, but they're bigger on the front end and are able to, transfer that bigness into team defense in their own zone. But this to me was a grind, right? Like, this is a team that you could pluck the Winnipeg Jets and take this game and drop it into the playoffs. You could pluck the Washington Capitals and drop them in the playoffs. And these are both the kind of games that would serve each of these teams extremely well. My take on the whole thing in overtime. Artificial period to me. The Jets, though, at least, so I don't take away, I don't say the Jets are the clear winner in this game. You put this into overtime, you never know what's going to happen when you go and you play actual overtime rather than 3-on-3. But something has to be said about the Jets' ability to take away ice and force turnovers from teams in 3-on-3 overtime. There should be all the ice in the world out there. And how often do the Jets lose the opening faceoff in overtime? and find a way to just force the other team to turn the puck over very easily the way that they do. And once they get it, they do such a good job of controlling it. I mean, I say what I say about 3-on-3 overtime. I say that because it's not going to matter at the most important time of the year. But saying that, I asked Josh Morrissey this question afterwards if you saw it, but creating offense in 3-on-3 overtime is a bit of an art form. It's one that the Winnipeg Jets seem to have down pat, and the way that they were able to generate that opportunity for Josh Morrissey, who I thought had a phenomenal game. We'll get into more of the players who we thought really popped in this game here tonight, but that was art at work, and I just think despite blowing the third period lead, a show of resolve by both of these teams here. I think you saw everything that you would want to see from this game in a first place showdown in the NHL. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Oh, forgot to bring Ken in here. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. And you can be judges for yourself if how I did in my Frankie role in getting Ken the tie that he asked for. Blue pinstripe, white shirt. I came with the dark blue. I came with some stripes. I came with the light blue. I don't know what Frankie would have to say with it. We'll have to go down and ask him and see.
I think he'd be happy.
But Ken, you got that classic look going on. Very gorgeous, very beautiful. I'm rocking the brown suit that has like a hint of plum. I was actually going to wear a sharp blue tie with this just because sometimes chocolate brown and blue go together. But because there's a slight reddish tinge to this, I decided to go with this bad boy. I hope I didn't let Frankie and the boys down. Regardless, Ken, I think the both of us look great. And of course we do, because we went down to Vittorio Rossi to take care of our fancy clothing needs. You could do the same thing. Head on down to Corridon Avenue, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken,
yes, sir.
Fun tilt is
how buddy.
You described it to me in the text. Can you expand on that?
Well, I'll do my best here. This is the beauty of just one thing quickly before we get rolling. This is what I love about Capital One Arena. One of the best rinks in the league, and we got a tilt going on here. We just got a fun rec hockey game after the first place showdown. I love this about this place. A little bit of a couple tunes in the backdrop, but Sean, I mean, this is one of the most enjoyable atmospheres in the NHL. Yes, there are others that we enjoy. Vegas, Montreal when Montreal's good, Chicago when the Blackhawks are good, Rangers when the Rangers are good, Dallas, Tampa, Colorado, the works. But this is such a fun vibe, and so many times, Sean, a first place showdown like this, national TV, national media is in town, and you get sort of a flopper, right? You get the game sometimes don't live up to the hype. This one absolutely lived up to the hype. As you mentioned, I mean, you don't know what you're going to get, right? You got two teams that can score, but they can also defend. So you're not sure what style of game it's going to be. The Jets dominate the first period. They have the puck almost the entire time, zone time wildly in their favor. And all of a sudden, Washington just starts kind of chipping away at it, and they get the game tied in the third. I mean, it was such an impressive game. So much resilience from both teams. I love the way that the Capitals responded to the Jets' early push. Their second and third was way better than their first. But the Jets also, Sean, the one thing that we've been impressed by, one of many, when the Jets get punched in the mouth, they find a way to reset themselves. They don't just fold. They don't have a woe is me attitude. They find a way to elevate their game. Like you said, that on-demand portion is something that is impressive to me and to you and to many other people who are looking for signs from this team. And today's another sign. I mean, yes, that game could have easily gone the other way, but the Jets also were full value in the first period. And you're right, and Gallows is right. Washington had a long road trip. It's no surprise when a team maybe doesn't have their A game, but they got to their A game. And yet the Jets found a way to defend pretty well. They have some puck management issues in the game, there's no doubt. We'll get into that. But at a time when it's a tie game, the building's rocking, Ovi scores, place is going bananas, Jets stabilize their game, get it to overtime, and then, two of their best players find a way to connect for the game-winning goal. Sean, one of those players, as you just mentioned, was one of the best players on the ice today, and the other guy was not in Mark Scheifele form for the majority of the game. That line struggled, quite frankly. Mark did not have a great game, turned the puck over on bad puck managing at the offensive blue line. The other team comes back and scores. But this is important. When the game is on the line, Mark Scheifele found a way to make a really good play, a really smart pass to Morrissey, and it helps kind of wash away some of the earlier sins, if you will. And again, I'm not speaking, I'm not trying to make light of anything here, but I like the way that Mark responds. Like, sometimes you don't have it. It's the way it goes. But you find a way to elevate and make a play when the game counts. I thought Josh Morrissey had a fantastic game. Neil Pionk, excellent with the 2 assists. Cole Perfetti, one of his best games of the year. And we'll dig into all of these things a little bit further. But overall, I love the fact that this was a fun game, a fun atmosphere. And Sean, we're going to have to wait for almost 8 weeks for the rematch, but I'm already looking forward to the rematch. I can't wait for 7 weeks from now on March 25th, and not just because it's my 50th birthday on March 25th. Jets and Caps, sign us up for as many more games on the calendar as there could have between these two teams, because it would be a great punch-counter-punch series. But for now, we'll settle with 2 games in the regular season and see where things are at. But I loved a lot about the game for both teams. Both teams came exactly as advertised. Talked about it with Jim Toth and Derek Taylor on the pregame show on CJOB. This is a classic Spider-Man meme pointing. Both teams are pointing at one another. You defend, we defend. You score, we score. They do so many things similarly and kind of built the same. Lots of depth on both teams. We've applauded the Jets for having 8-10 goal scorers. Well, guess what? Caps have 9. So they're the similar style of player. Yes, they have a superstar in Ovechkin who is, 1 goal closer to breaking what we thought was an unbreakable record. They have some high-end players. They got some high draft picks. Their defense core also kind of similar in a lot of ways, where they have Carlson and Chychrun. Jets have Morrissey and Pionk that do a lot of the heavy lifting offensively on the back end. Obviously we know the PLD connection. I thought he had a pretty solid game overall. His engagement super high. And just in case people thought PLD might have forgotten about the boos that he heard last year as a member of the LA Kings, that is not a game 52 fist pump, Sean. That's a full-on pumpernickel, fired up to score against his old team. So love the game all around. And yeah, I mean, it's just a fun tilt overall. You're muted, my man, I think.
Yes, I am. I want to get into this. First off, I did a hit on City TV where before the game I used the Spider-Man meme. I said, if you wanted to describe this game in social media terms, think of the Spider-Man meme. These two are like looking in the mirror with each other. So I love that you went in that direction. Probably means you and I are spending too much time together that we keep
not enough, buddy.
Same
not
analogy,
enough.
Or we just are starting to read games. There's a way to do analysis perfect, Ken, and we're just bumping up against that ceiling, I guess, is the way that we do this here. I wanted to get to the on-command portion of what I'm talking about with the Winnipeg Jets here. You talked about it, the Winnipeg Jets, all of a sudden the game's tied up, and like you talk about like resetting. Some teams can take a little bit of time to reset. Sometimes it takes, we're going to send this line. You'll hear coaches talk about it. We'll send this line out, and they'll kind of slow their momentum. The next line out will go and hit a stalemate, and then the next line will come and build, and then by your fourth or fifth line, now you're carrying the momentum. With the Winnipeg Jets, time and time again, hitting the reset button is just like that. It's like it's the that was easy Staples button. You turn around and all of a sudden they are delivering. They are right down your throat. It's this on-command performance that I see time and time again from the Winnipeg Jets, not just from game to game, but from shift to shift within the game. I think that's really important, Ken. The reason I think that it's important is because we've talked about this in the past. Really good teams. You saw it from the Florida Panthers when it switched to the playoffs a couple of years ago. You saw them do it again. There's a game that they get to. A team I've talked about this who does it all the time, the Dallas Stars, are a team that once they hit the playoffs, you know that they're going to start dialing it up to 11, right? There's certain teams out there that when the moment matters most, they elevate. They know how to do it. And what I've seen from the Winnipeg Jets this year that I didn't necessarily see last year, Ken, we talked about January hit and the Jets went on a little bit of a plummet. We were starting to, at this time of the year, raise the red flags for the Winnipeg Jets about them being a team that was beating the teams below the playoff line, but couldn't seem to beat the teams above the playoff line. That problem went on for a long time, like weeks, 6-7 weeks or something like that, before they kind of started addressing that. That's a sign of a team that just isn't able to hop to it and address things. What we've seen over and over and over again from this Jets team is a team that knows how to get to where it needs to go and can do it on command. It's one of the hardest things to do in sports. The vast majority of teams never get there. Really good teams do get there. The Jets, if you needed any proof, are a really, really good team, because think of this. Next time you watch the Jets game and next time you see them in trouble or next time you see a goal scored against them, just think to yourself as the game is going on, think how many times you think, man, the Jets could really use a bounce back here, and they'll get it the next shift, whether it's the third line or the fourth line or the second line or the first line, or whether it's a save from Connor Hellebuck. The Jets get that all the time this year. And what that tells me is it's a team that's unlocked that layer. It's a team that when the playoffs come around, I am thinking, like, if I needed it, Ken, if I needed proof, and you know me, I've said this, I didn't want to ruin the season in game 20 or game 25 because I feel like I was doing it a little bit early on, because I was saying, okay, well, the Jets are doing this and this is great, but like I've always got that nagging thing in my mind. How are the Jets going to prove to me that they've got something different this year heading into the playoffs? They're proving it to me right now. I talked a little bit about it last night. You need to say something, Ken? I talked a little bit about it, on the last podcast, but I'm just getting locked in and locked in and locked in. The Winnipeg Jets are showing me that they are a team that know what the standard is, and they know how to reach that standard at the right time. And it's why they're a team that plays Boston and blows them out in the third period, right? Because they know that there's a standard that they get to. And how quick did they bounce back to that standard, Ken, against Boston? After they got scored on, after a tiny little bit of a slow start in the third period, and then they turn around and get how many goals back to back in that game tonight? The one of the best teams in the league pushes back, ties the game, and the Jets get a response. And why is that response important? Well, they go into the extra frame and they don't go in on their heels. Right. They go in thinking like, we pushed back, and we actually think the very end of that third period, in spite of them tying up that game, we actually feel like we captured some of that momentum back. So you're not going in on your heels. You're not going in, leaving the Washington Capitals feeling like they're a giant snowball rolling down the hill. You feel like you've evened the ground out when you do that. So I take a look at this. I think of all the things I've seen from the Winnipeg Jets this year, talking about how Connor Hellebuck is playing, talking about how Josh Morrissey and the defense are defending, talking about their stats, first or second in so many of the important stats in the NHL, talking about their first line taking these next steps, talking about all these different players, having the best seasons that they've ever had before. Nick Ehlers having the best season he's ever had before. Gabe Vilardi, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, all those things are things that can kind of disappear. But a team that is able to understand what they're supposed to look like and on command go out and look like that is a team, I think, Ken, that is very, very dangerous as a playoff team.
Yeah, darn bang on all assessments here, and just that it doesn't take long. So 24 seconds the other night after giving up the goal, 11 seconds into the third, and then Ehlers bangs one in at last 1:17 into the third. So two quick Dennis Bayak bang specials today, just stabilizing it in. Sometimes it just means getting over the boards, getting the puck in deep, and spending some time in the offensive zone. Fourth line did that a few times. The third line did that a few times. And also, too, the Nemestikov line, we'll get into it a little bit further. Absolutely outstanding game. 2 games in a row for that second line where they were really driving really well and providing some great secondary support. But again, sometimes the primary scoring has to come from that second line. Today was one of those days. Second unit coming through again. But in terms of the bounce back ability, that was very important for them. This game could have got this, like you said, we've seen the snowball syndrome for the Jets. We've seen it against Colorado in the past. We saw it in the playoffs again. It could have been that way tonight. Sean, we were both inside the building. Ovi scores on the one-timer. Roof blows off this place. People are going wild. One closer to the great one and the record. Place is going bananas. But the Jets don't just roll over. They find a way to just get back on the horse, calm things down, and get the job done overall. Again, was it a perfect game for the Jets? No. Rarely they are when people going crazy saying this is an example of why the Jets can't win in the playoffs. This is pristine roofing wake-up territory. The fact that they stabilized after not holding the lead is evidence in the contrary to what you believe.
Direction,
It's exactly what they need to do. Because guess what? When you play a really good team, maybe even an elite team based on the standings, that's how you have to respond. There's going to be punches and counter punches all the time in the playoffs. The margin is very slim. And as you mentioned, there's not going to be 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs. So maybe you got to go 3 overtimes to get that game done. Maybe it's La Fontaine. Like, you never know what's going to happen. But what you know is that you plant the seeds during the year. This is more seed planting by the Jets. And again, like I said, there were some guys who had tough outings, but guess what? It's an 82-game season. Sometimes that's going to happen. And, the Jets found a way to get the job done. And let's also not take away what they did in the first period in terms of the dominance that they portrayed. And also the Caps' ability to bounce back after a quiet first period. So that's just 2 teams going toe-to-toe. And again, that ability to, not flip the switch, but to stabilize when your wheels are wobbling a little bit, it's an absolutely crucial quality, Sean. All the good teams have that quality, and the Jets are trying to show it with a little bit more frequency, and they've done it, often this year. There haven't been a lot of lengthy lulls, and honestly, Jets have won 6 games in a row. Have they all been pretty? No, but their ability to rebound after their game against Utah and find a different level, or their more consistent level, has been incredibly important for them as they get through this game here.
Well, you heard it. Ken called for the pristine roofing wake-up call for all those folks who had just a terrible take there, no doubt. So you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the one you want down at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. They come over, give your house the pristine roofing wake-up call. You will be glad they did. Okay, I wanted to get into this. I'm just going to name off 3 players, 4 players maybe, and then we're just going to handle it like this, where we are going to just kind of talk about what great nights they had. I want to start, of course, with Cole Perfetti. Right off the bat, Ken, before he got the results, you and I were texting each other in game. I loved what I saw, right? I loved the kind of, so let's back it up. Everyone knows how I've talked about Cole Perfetti so far this season. Everyone knows my take on where his points have typically come from. Everyone knows that I've warned about, until you can go and get into, different scoring areas on the ice and doing it more consistently, that he's going to have his problems with inconsistency that he's had. I've talked about calling it for him to get to this in more difficult games. This is as difficult as it gets. The lowest scoring team in the NHL, the third biggest team in the NHL, one of the heaviest teams in the NHL, a team that knows how to grind. And what does Cole do? He spends the very first moments of this game that he's on the ice constantly going to the front of the net. He goes, creates with a really great play where he just cuts right into the traffic in front of the net. What ends up happening, because he goes there with speed? Yeah, the guy's bigger than him, but Cole's faster, and he's going right to the most dangerous areas. That creates desperation. The player hooks him. There's a penalty. Well, who scores on the very penalty that he drew? Cole Perfetti. And then next, he's up in the front of the zone, sets up Dylan Samberg on his goal. Another tip. The Jets didn't make it easy on Logan Thompson tonight, no doubt. Cole Perfetti didn't make it easy, and that's why I think Cole Perfetti has this kind of great game that he has now. All of a sudden, Cole, who used to pop up and then disappear, pop up and disappear, Cole Perfetti comes into this game, plays the exact kind of game we've talked about on this show, Ken, that is going to make him more consistent, that is going to get him to the level that we've said in the past we think he can get to. He goes out and has that exact kind of game, puts his thumbprints all over this game. I thought he was the Jets, he and maybe Nemestikov were the Jets' best player. Well, I'll throw Pionk in there as well.
Yeah.
The best players to start this game. But all of a sudden, Cole Perfetti has points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's got 7 points over those 5 games. I know a lot of people heard me do it. This was an off-the-cuff story that we did on the broadcast. But Cole Perfetti, I take a look at him. He keeps playing like this, and he needs to, because Gary Galley really added to it well after we talked about it, Ken. But I'd said in there, the Jets had to go out and get Toffoli last year because they didn't believe they could get consistency from Cole Perfetti. All of a sudden, at a crucial time in the season, when hockey's more difficult, when Cole Perfetti has kind of gone a little bit to sleep in the past, Cole Perfetti is now bringing it at the hard times of the season. He's going to the tough areas. He's producing consistently. Where do you think Cole Perfetti can take his game in the next? I know it's not a lot, and then we've got the Four Nations break. There's a couple weeks after that, but Cole's got a good start. What do you think he'd need to do to continue on? And what does he need to keep doing based on what he's been doing to put the Jets in a situation where they don't feel they need to address scoring in the wing in the Jets' top 6?
Yeah, go to the hard areas, and that's what he did, as you mentioned, getting to the hard areas, making things happen. I love this answer from Scott O'Neill after the game when I asked him about Perfetti. That's the maturity we've seen from him over the last year and a half. He used to let stuff bother him when he didn't score, and he got away with how he had to play. He's doing a fantastic job now with his puck battles. That's the simplest thing that has helped him have success. Hard on the puck, around it a lot, staying closer to the net, and now the line's showing a little bit of chemistry. I love that explanation because, last year, obviously Cole is a guy who's incredibly hard on himself. Everybody talks about he doesn't smile, and even in the best moments, it's, he's the kind of guy that's kind of dialed in a lot of the time, but now he's starting to enjoy the game. And of course it's easier to enjoy the game when you're producing, but this is why earlier I was saying that I was seeing signs, and that's why I defended the player when everyone was ready to toss him out of town. Again, he needs to do it for a longer stretch of time, Sean, but you said it. This is not a 6-2 game against the San Jose Sharks. This is a game against the best team by points percentage in the NHL, best team in the league. Big big, big, big person hockey, right? I mean,
Big
go to
boy
the hard
hockey.
areas, big boy hockey. I mean, that's what this game was. And Cole was not hanging out on the perimeter. He was going to the hard areas, making things happen, smart puck decisions. Yes, there was one turnover I didn't necessarily like, but his ability to not just panic with the puck. This is one of Cole's biggest strengths: his vision, his passing ability, and the smarts. And I thought that that's been part of his game that's really helped him during this last little bit of time here. So I think too, this is exactly what Cole needed to do. When the games got hard last year, he got way too quiet. We talked about it before, and I'm not trying to bring it up to remind people. 2 assists and no goals in 23 games. That's why you can't have that from a guy that is counted on to produce some secondary scoring. I did ask, sorry, Cranley asked about the hit. I asked Cole about the hit. He said he was fine. I don't think he was really expecting to
No,
be hit in that situation. It's interesting. I thought it was boarding in real time, Sean, but the hit was actually from the side, and Cole went in kind of face first. But I thought that it was a shoulder on shoulder hit. I didn't think it was a penalty personally, but I like the way he got back up right away. And it's important that he does that because he's going to be hit in the playoffs. That's the way it goes. But he
just
didn't shy away from anything.
I think Cranley is trying to suggest that we are
Oh, sorry. Yes.
flopping back and forth on our Cole Perfetti takes.
Well,
I don't know how much more consistent we could be if he starts doing the things we say he should start doing and having success. Like what do you want us to do? You want us to just draw a hard line and say, well, yeah, he hasn't scored or done. He's got 1 goal in 18 games because he's not doing these things. So that's our take forever until the end of time. Keep up, I guess is the best way to say this. Move on, Ken.
I know that's all I have for Cole. We'll talk more about him another time, but he's making the strides that he needs to make.
Okay, let's switch to Pionk because I thought Pionk had just. Okay, so just quickly, we finally got to do the story. This is actually one of those ones, and it's great because Paul Griss, my producer for this game, had I came with a list of stories to do. We left a lot on the cutting room floor, a lot on the table, but Paul got a lot in there. One that I want to talk about. Remind me, I've started. Yes. I will gonna have to talk about it a little bit later. But one of the good ones that we came in with was the Winnipeg Jets and the Washington Capitals each have 2 defensemen who are high offensive producing defensemen that really don't give up much in the way of defensive opportunities. And in fact, only the Winnipeg Jets and the Washington Capitals have 2 players with over 30 points. 2 defensemen with over 30 points in their lineup. And of course, you're talking about Carlson and Chikrin, and you're talking about Pionk and Morrissey. 3 of those 4 players get points on this night. So that story looks like it was a smart one to build up and a smart one to go with. We'll get to to Morrissey in a bit. But I got to say, Ken, Pionk, I thought, looked great out there tonight. He looked dangerous at every turn. It was so hard for Washington to exit the zone because Pionk would get the puck and he would just fake his guys out, take it, and he was dangerous. He was direct, getting the puck to the net, did a good job of waiting for the Jets to set up in front of the net to create that chaos and that confusion, just perfectly puts it into the lane for Alex Iafallo to tip that puck. Just give me your take on Neil Pionk's game tonight. And maybe because I know there was a lot of people who were really kind of attacking Neil Pionk in our last game without Sandberg in the lineup, and we did something on Sandberg as well. Right. If you noticed in the broadcast to give him his flowers as well. But it's pretty hard to be talking about Neil Pionk at this stage and not suggesting that this guy has evolved into one of the more dangerous defensemen in the NHL while being a fire plug as a defender.
Right, and that's the other part too. So I love the pairing as a whole in the game, not just because Sandberg, scored, and I think had what did he have? 1 and 1 for 2. Love Pionk's game overall. Love the pairing. Love the way that they played. And again, these guys are going to, especially a guy like Neil. He's an undersized defenseman that plays incredibly hard. But these are the type of games that you're going to be playing in the playoffs, and you need to show that you can handle yourself in those situations. Neil's had no problem producing offense in the playoffs. but it's the defensive part of the game where he needs to excel at. I thought that pairing was excellent in terms of what they did defensively in the game overall. Handled some tough, heavy minutes, played a lot against the Dubois pairing or the Dubois line, some against Ovechkin and Wilson, but I love the way the Pionk played. Almost, what does he have? 23-44 in the game, 30 shifts. Sean, 4 shots on net, 8 shot attempts, 1 hit, 1 block shot, on for 2, none against. I thought he was excellent in the game. Really liked Sandberg's game, but Neil Pionk, again, when I say this, I expected Josh Morrissey to continue to play at an elite level. So when I say one of the most important elements for the Jets this year was for Neil Pionk to elevate his game back to a higher level, a level that we saw in the bubble, a level we saw in the first, year or two, coming out of the Trouba trade. And what he has done is he's found that level, and like exactly what you said, offensive game, strong. Defensive game, way less chaotic than it was, the last 2 years or so. And we know what he dealt with in terms of injuries and personal tragedy. And we've said that from the beginning. But the Jets needed Neil Pionk to get back to being a guy that's making, he makes a lot of money, and he also is playing in a top 4 role. So he has been full value for what he's been doing this year on all kinds of fronts. He is an incredibly important leader on this team, Sean, and in some ways he's kind of a little bit of the pulse back there as well. I mean, Josh Morrissey is the driver on the back end, but I think that Neil Pionk, when he's really playing at a high level, that's when things kind of purr along for the Winnipeg Jets on the back end. Again, his play beside Sandberg versus, some of the other partners he had, and I'm not knocking the other partners, but the reality is that, not a lot of those other partners were used to playing top 4 minutes. So Pionk and Sandberg have incredible chemistry. They're playing very well together. And, this is kind of reinforcement that when Jets definitely will be looking for an upgrade on defense, Sean, but they don't necessarily need someone to bump Pionk to the third pairing. That pairing can stay together and be effective even against heavy teams during the Stanley Cup playoffs. So that's a massive development. And yes, we understand there's still almost 28 games to go in the regular season, but his body has held up well. And his mental game is strong. He's a guy who's also very hard on himself, but he's kind of getting better at that over the years. And when that pairing is rolling, it's much like what we talk about. When the Scheifele line and the Nemestikov line are both going, same as on the back. When Pionk and Sandberg are playing at a high level and Morrissey and DeMello are going, they can be very dangerous. And yes, we understand the Morrissey-DeMello pairing they were on for too many goals against today. I'm not only blaming the defense for those goals, but let's just not kid ourselves. It wasn't their best effort. I mean, they'll be the first to tell you that, and I think Morrissey did tell you that based on what the chat room is saying. But at the same time, they've been excellent for, the majority of the year. I thought DeMello's raised his level in the last, 20 games, last quarter or so. But again, missteps are going to happen on occasion, but haven't been a lot of missteps for the Pionk Sandberg pairing, and keeping them together, and the belief in Dylan Sandberg, maybe that's a good place to go to the payoff.
Yeah, sounds good to me. It has most definitely paid off the Winnipeg Jets, investing their time in a player that has had some rough times over the years, but has come around and is definitely excelling this season. Top 15 in scoring by defensemen so far this year. Anyways, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking out a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.nb.ca to book an appointment online. Okay, you were talking about some missteps. There were a few of them when the defensive pairing of Dylan DeMello and Josh Morrissey were out there tonight. Josh Morrissey, tried to earn as many of them back as he could. He was on for 4 goals. He told me in his post-game interview, he went out and scored 2 to take it back, including, or to try and take as much of it back as he could, including the game winner. But what do you take away from that pair's performance tonight, Ken, in getting caught on the ice for 4 goals, but Josh Morrissey making sure that he put a positive stamp on this game?
Yeah, I just think that there were a couple of sort outs and a couple of things in the defensive zone that kind of, there was a little wire crossing that was happening. And, some of it was related, sometimes to the forwards, but I think the one goal specifically that would happen in front of me, I think it was in when you're at the Zambonis at the other end, but I think it was the goal by Wilson. The Wilson goal is one, bless you. The Wilson goal is one where DeMello is on the dump in. DeMello is below the goal line. Josh kind of goes to try to help out behind the net, and then Scheifele is late getting to the guy in front, and then Wilson gets there, and it's kind of too late for Morrissey to get back to the front of the net. I thought there was just maybe a little bit of I'm not sure if it was communication or something else, but I just thought that there were a few sort outs that weren't quite at the level they needed to be. And again, I'm not just blaming the defense pairing on that. Sometimes that's a 5-man unit, and it's all 5 guys on the ice that need to get things, sorted out, for lack of a better term here. So outside of that, again, some people are saying it was the physical part that they had trouble with. I don't think that that's the case. They've had lots of games against big guys where it's gone well. I would just say that, the box outs weren't quite as steady as they usually are or need to be. I would say that that's, something that maybe stood out. Like I said, I don't think it was, I didn't see a ton of chaos, but I didn't see a lot of great, the defensive zone coverage wasn't quite as good. But again, it was something that was also related to the group that was out on the ice. The, Scheifele line was on for a little bit. And then on the Ovechkin goal, obviously the Jets' fourth line, again, I thought the fourth line played very well again, got themselves a goal. Originally, they've changed. I don't know how. Yeah. Okay. Strange.
What's that?
Just looking at the game sheet, how, never mind. I thought, no, never mind.
I'm going to hop in here. I do think the physicality of the game affected that group there. And I don't think it's in a way that they were pounded into submission. It's the bigness, the ranginess of the Washington Capitals players that I thought caught up with those players at time tonight. There was a few times I saw DeMello getting kind of like trapped in that corner. He makes, moves where he protects the puck and goes the other way. And they're just so big and rangy, those Capitals players, that they're able to get from one side of you to the other because they're just so long. They've got just such good long arms and such a good reach of the stick, and because they're good at taking away the spots where the Jets are trying to go. I think the one thing that kept happening at least a few times with DeMello on this night is they stumped him, so he'd stop moving his feet. And the success that I saw from him, you saw it a bunch of times from Dylan Sandberg, where Sandberg got the puck, he was under pressure, and he just kept skating. He didn't panic with the puck. He didn't try to move it. He just kept skating and moving it up ice. There was one time, I forget which player it was, it was Dowd. Dowd was checking him, and Dowd just kind of fell off of him, and then the Jets moved it up ice. They actually ended up doing a good job of kind of exploiting the fact that now they had a 5-on-4, just even if it was for a short amount of time. But I thought Sandberg kind of put out the blueprint for how to handle that game tonight, to just kind of hold on to it. And this is similar to how I talked about Utah handling the pressure of the Jets on that forecheck. Teams who play the Jets quite often panic and just move the puck, but they end up moving it right to the Winnipeg Jets. Utah had so much success because they would kind of wait for the wave to pass over them, hold on to the puck, and then go move it. And now you're on the backside of the wave where it's easier to navigate. This was one of those nights where I felt like, that pairing got caught at times with being pressured, allowing that pressure to rush their decisions, and really were not able to handle that as well as some of the other lines did. I actually thought, for the most part, Logan Stanley seemed to handle the size game not that bad. So that is a pairing that I will be watching the next time these two teams meet in late March, because I do think the Washington Capitals found success against that pairing that most teams do not. And I will be interested to see if that's a pattern or if it was just an off night defensively. If it was an off night defensively, credit to Josh Morrissey. Tells you a lot about who he is as a player, that he was so aware that he'd been on for those goals tonight and went out and found a way to affect the game on the scoreboard the way that he did. Do we want to talk about let's talk about Nemestikov. I think
Sure.
Nemestikov deserves his flowers after a game like that. Gary Galley was highly impressed by him, and we should give him his flowers before.
Oh, no doubt. So what we know about Nemestikov, always a question about the second line. Well, he started to get things going offensively, Sean. 2 helpers today, making things happen, buzzing, almost, just over 17 minutes, 4 shots on net, 5 shot attempts. And we also know that Nemestikov's, in the faceoff circle historically hasn't been great. Tonight, 64%. Jets did a way better job, 60% winners in the faceoff circle compared to 40 by the Caps. They got their lunch fed to them, I think, in Boston the other night, in spite of the lopsided victory. But Nemestikov, love the way he's skating. Sean, we know he was banged up. We know he was hurt. We know he blocked a shot. Maybe it impacted his legs a bit, but how he's playing right now is he's moving his feet and making things happen, going to the hard areas, defending well, and doing all of the little necessary things that are required, to play winning hockey. I thought it was a little bit quieter day for Ehlers, even though he did have two shots on net and 5 shot attempts. I didn't think he had his wheels going quite the same way that we're used to seeing it. He did get in on the forecheck a few times, but I didn't find him to be as dangerous in the game today. I'm not sure, Sean, if you feel the same way, but I actually thought that normally it's Ehlers driving that line. Today, I actually thought it was the Nemesnikov-Perfetti combo that was really driving the line. And again, not knocking Ehlers. He's had an unbelievable year. It just was one of the games where this is a game for me, Sean. You need Ehlers to be putting his fingerprints all over this game. If this is a playoff game, Ehlers has got to be playing at a little bit higher level. And again, I've loved the year that he's had. He's having an exceptional year, but I think Nikolai Ehlers is a guy who's incredibly hard on himself also. I would think that he would want a little bit more out of the game also. But again, that line didn't give up much defensively, and they were able to get a little bit of offense going, both on the, again, Perfetti and Nemestikov on the power play, but also at 5-on-5. So I thought overall, the line was exceptional, and I thought that, this week, Nemestikov has really started to roll, Sean, and that's a huge development for the Jets, whether they get a second line center or decide a winger or whatever they decide to do. We know there's been some activity, on the trade front in the last stretch of time here. Like I said earlier, Nemestikov became the 8th member of the Jets to hit double digits in goals. 2 games in a row with Nemestikov getting 2 points. He's got 5 points in his last 5 games. That's second line production. Do I think they're still going to be going out to look for a 2C? Probably, but I think Nemestikov is, putting his stamp down and saying, hey, you can count on me wherever you need me, but I'm still here also. And when he plays like that, it makes the Jets a more dangerous team, whether he's on the second line or whether he's on the third line or whether he's on the fourth line. And that's such an important thing because that it's such a battle of attrition when the postseason arrives. You need guys like Vlad Nemestikov to be playing at that type of level if you want to try to eliminate 4 teams. It's just that simple.
Good stuff. Okay, I wanted to bring this up before we go too far. Oh, I wanted to say just about Sandberg. I know you never get to see these things when you're on the road.
Yeah.
Gave Sandberg his flowers tonight. The team's winning percentage again with him in the lineup is points percentage is without him is 587. With him, 797. They win almost 80% of their points.
Crazy.
When he's in the lineup. It is unbelievable. I just thought tonight showed well. And there you go. If you remember, Dylan Sandberg didn't have the best playoffs last season. another player who's taken a step forward that I would expect this year. You're not going to have that fall off that you had last year. Wanted to bring this up. Some people have talked about, a couple things. I don't have the headband, folks. I'm sorry. I know you're calling for it. Usually I would have brought it in. Renny boned up.
Hey, you were too busy bringing things in for me.
There you
Chargers
go.
and ties. I'll fall on the sword for this one.
Yeah. Things
There's
fall
only
out
so
of my
much
head.
information.
I bring in a tie, a headband falls out. That's the way it goes. This is the other thing. Winnipeg 33 says, great Velarde graphic on Sportsnet. So this is a brainchild I've had going for a long time. We're hoping to do more of it. If you've ever seen the Hey Berkey videos, you'll notice it's the same animator. It's also the same animator for Ken's and my avatar, the same person who did the video for Sean's headband. Let's play it, Ken, not to have the headband, but just so people can see the work that we're talking about. Sacrilege, I know, to play that and not come out with the headband. I should have tied something around my head. Regardless, I wanted to show you that it's Niels Brits, who's a Winnipegger, who animates those videos. If you've seen the Hey Berkey videos, you'll notice it's the same person. Niels is someone that I saw doing some work for 92 years ago and had a ton of admiration for. So I pitched some ideas, one of them, which ended up turning into the Hey Berkey videos, and pitched this idea here. Was a ton of fun working with Neil, was a ton of fun working with Gabe on this one. Also, Gabe's older brother and Gabe's mom gave me a whole bunch of information on that, on the building of some of the best hands in the NHL. Neil Brits went to work on it afterwards. We got to show Gabe the video before the game started. He was kind of tickled pink about that. Hopefully, we will be bringing more Jets stories to you like that. We wanted something to be unique. We wanted it to be kind of like, unique to the Jets and to give a special treatment to the Jets that maybe other teams weren't getting. I thought we achieved that tonight. If you saw it, I hope you liked it. Any of your positive comments, if you did like it, I'm sure Niels would appreciate. Niels is an absolute stud at those kind of things, and a guy who's had an impact on this show with some of the stuff that he's put together. Thank you, Niels. You did a great job. Great job. And I know that you know Niels. Okay, Ken, we got to get down to it. What's your, before we get down to it, why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
For sure. For folks who have realty needs, you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including our podcast.
Someone asked if I could replay the. I didn't load it into the show, so I can't right now. That said, maybe we can, and maybe I can play it another time. Regardless, it was a lot of fun doing that. I hope. I know that Gabe's mom, Giovanna, was extremely excited about that story. His older brother is the one who put me onto it. Those are just some of the fun things that happen behind the scenes. Again, I'm really hoping I've got a really, really fun one in the hopper. If we get to do it, I'll give the audience a heads up before it happens next time. Anyway, Ken, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Oh man, you got one off the top of your head? I don't have a ton.
I texted you one.
You did. Oh, hang on. I got it. It's early in the game.
Oh, yes. It's Logan Stanley.
Yep.
Logan Stanley, I thought, got you covered. He cleaned up a rebound.
Yep.
That was going on. I actually thought Logan Stanley, no doubt, was made to look unsure by the Winnipeg Jets on this night. But I actually think that the success of the Washington Capitals is they made Connor Hellebuck look a little unsure on this night. And one of the times I thought he looked a little unsure, he kicked a rebound off to the side.
Yep.
The Capitals player was closing in on, very well could have ended up at the back of the net. And Logan Stanley was there to save the day. Again, I think this was a good game by Logan Stanley. You're going to get pressured by a big, strong team. He handled the test on this night. He's another one I'll be watching the next time these two teams meet to see if he can go 2 for 2 against that team.
You can tell. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's the Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. You had something to say there, Ken?
I just said too, you can tell by the ice time, right? The other night, the Fleury-Stanley pairing was in the 10-minute mark. In this one, Logan Stanley, 13-24 in the game. So, 1 shot, 2 shot attempts, 2 hits, 2 blocks. So I thought he was better today. Again, like 2 good games, or 2 steady games in a row for Stanley. Again, he can still elevate and still needs to do more to consistently show that he deserves to be in the playoff lineup. But after a bit of a wobbly one against the Montreal Canadiens, thought there was some progression in both of the last 2 games.
Well, and look at this one from Blake Griffiths, who says Stan took a big double hit from Ovi. He got dropped, and I loved how he got up right away afterwards and just kind of continued with that game. There was, it's not often players kind of throw their weight around on Stan on the ice. When it did happen, the response was good. This wasn't one of those times, Ken, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it in hockey that I've played in the past. There will be a big guy out there skating around like he's the toughest guy out there, and he takes one stiff shot, and then that's it. The illusion is shattered. Didn't happen with Stan tonight. Anyways, moving on to the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, I know some folks like to save on Ethan Frank, and with all due respect to Ethan Frank, the first thing that I said to Kevin Sawyer, who was sitting beside me, I said the Jets are probably fortunate that was Ethan Frank and not a top 6 player for the Capitals, because if it was, it probably was going to be in the back of the net. And again, Ethan Frank plays hard, NHLer, all of the things. I didn't think he got that great a shot off in that situation. That's why I'm going with the save off of Protas earlier on in the third. Maybe it was around the 6-minute mark. I thought that was a really, really important save by Hellebuck, and one that kind of, in a night that, again, both goalies, it's funny, both goalies played mostly well, finished with 25 saves, yet you look up and it's a 9-goal game, which it just kind of strange for 2 teams that defend as well as the 2 teams do. They also generate plenty. So I thought that the Protas save was one of Hellebuck's best.
I'll say this. This is one of those nights where the 2 top goaltenders by numbers in the
league
NHL right now, neither of them looked overly impressive to me. But that's what good offenses do. The 2 best offenses in the NHL came to play tonight, and they made the 2 best, maybe you could argue they're the 2 best goaltenders in the game right now, look fairly pedestrian on this night. Hard night to pick a keg save of the game candidate. So I'm just going to go with yours, Ken. But it doesn't matter what I go with. Matters what you go with at home. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You are automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, you saw his work there. Not Niels Brits animating the Sean's headband video, but the man who played the music, Tristan Rivers. You are our keg save of the game winner. So you know what that means. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And that brings us to our TCB lamplighter of the game. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Sean, I have some temptation to go with the Morrissey goal, but because of the way that, both Morrissey, who had been on for 4 against, and Scheifele, whose puck management was not quite at the level that it's been at for the majority of the season. But, we talk about repeatable goals all the time. And, I think we got it. We went through an hour of the show and didn't give flowers to the second power play unit, which has really done an exceptional job for the Jets this year. Top unit, obviously exceptional also. But, Perfetti doing the things that are required to get points, scoring that rebound goal. I think I'm going to give it to Perfetti. Again, you can't always count on the power play, but the Jets have counted on it almost 33% of the time this year. And the fact that that second unit came through with a big goal is an impressive one.
I'll say I'm very surprised that you went with Cole, because that's what I'm going with too. There's nothing I love more than a guy who goes out and earns a penalty and scores on the power play created by his penalty. There's only one thing I love more. It's a guy who goes out and draws a penalty and is only on the secondary power play unit and goes out and scores a goal on that power play with the very little remaining time that they have. I just think that to me, this goal is an extension of the original play. Cole Perfetti driving hard to the front of the net. You don't have to be, Braden Point has proved this his entire career. You don't have to go toe to toe with the trees in front of the net to be that player that goes to the front of the net. There's lots of small players who go to the front of the net, that get to the dirty areas, that don't have to go there and get outmanned by a guy who's 6 inches taller and 70 pounds heavier. It doesn't have to be like that. You just have to dart in and dart out, get to those spaces, because going there causes chaos. Going there and getting an edge means players have to try and stop you. That's what he does there. This, to me, is the perfect expression of who Cole Perfetti should be, and the game he should be trying to play at the NHL level is being that guy who goes hard to and darts to the front of the net and then capitalizes on the chaos that he creates, whether it's on the power play or whatever. He can go and show that skill, but more of this by Cole Perfetti is going to take away those large swaths of his career and his seasons where he goes to sleep and can't seem to wake up. If he keeps doing this more and more often, Cole Perfetti is going to get very close to the kind of player that the Jets projected that he could be. I think he's starting to get that now, Ken. Fascinated to see where he takes that in the next 10 to 15 to 20 games. Anyways, that's my and Ken's TCB Lamplighter of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though. Matters what you think. Share with us your TCB Lamplighter of the game. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, you know what to do. Head on down to 11290 Kenniston. Join them in their tap room. You can find an 8-pack there, a 24-pack. I think they've got 15 packs, and so many other great beers, and the best pizza in the city on an atmosphere that you will want to go back to over and over and over. Time to announce our TCB winner from our last show, and that would be Lynn Reimer. Lynn, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. Ken, anything you got to say before we get going?
Well, we're going to see Mikko Rantanen for a 5th time this year on Tuesday, and I'm pumped for that too, because the Carolina Hurricanes are also one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and it's the Jets' first meeting of the season with them. They'll have 2 during the last 28 games to go, much like the Jets having 2 in the last 29 with the Caps. So should be a fun one. Loved everything about this game. Lots of fun. These are fun ones to cover. Another goal closer to history, which is, again, that we understand that the chase means different things to different people, but from the pure hockey side, it was a cool moment to be in the building to see Alex Ovechkin get one closer to Wayne Gretzky, and the Jets played a very solid game and a matchup that lived up to the hype. So fun evening at Capital One Arena. Well, glad we were here together.
No doubt. And I'll say this, I think one of the reasons you always enjoy it so much is because you got to spend time with our main man, Steve Wino, who is just one of the all-time great guys in sports media. I can tell you this. I don't know if I told this story on the show. I was down here covering a series, the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins, and you texted and gave Steve Wino, out of the blue, you and I weren't working together at the time, but out of the blue, you gave Steve Wino a heads up that I was going to be there. And I don't know that I've ever had anyone make me feel more welcome on the road than Steve did. Just an absolute great guy. Love seeing him. Love that you got out with him last night. Awesome stuff. Awesome job. Awesome guy. Great job, too, by everyone in the chat room. It's great to see you here. And I will remind you all that if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, I would implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, TransCanada Brewing Company, The Keg, and of course, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. Ken and I will come back to the land of
Tuesday.
applied tariffs, and we will see everybody doing their thing right here, hopefully in this space after the Jets face another challenge, a stiff one against the Carolina Hurricanes. Talk to you after that. Bye-bye, folks.